From the Rifts!
Hey, welcome back to From the Rifts. I'm Big Will Johnson.
Carmen Belair.
And today we're going to be discussing how to make a character. Now, we've noticed on the boards a lot of you guys are like, hey, how do you make a good character? Or what are the steps that go into making a proper character in the Palladium system? Well, we're going to go one step further. We're going to not only show you how to make a proper Palladium character in a Rift setting, but we're also going to show you guys how we actually do it when we play our own personal games. Because we do actually play these games. We're not
because basically a lot of people use their own home version of how to do whatever. And we're no different, even though I write for them. I know what the real way is, things are supposed to be done. We still have a way that we've been using for ages because we like the little more epic, little more powerful characters. We generally just do certain things.
And just in case there are some like purists out there, they're like, what? This is the kind of thing that Kevin encourages, actually.
Yeah. Even in Kevin's own game, he does a couple things different than what's in the book. I can tell you because I've played with him.
I guess the best way to describe the rules, just in general, before we get started, is that Palladium is kind of it's like the skeletal structure for what will become a nice, fully developed game. So keep in mind as we're explaining some of this stuff.
Yeah. Okay, so first thing, when you want to make a character, you need an idea of what you want. The thing with Palladium, Rifts specifically, especially because there are so many choices you can make, is that one of the best ways to do it is to figure out the kind of character you want first. I usually do that even before I figure an OCC or anything. Mm-hmm. So if I want to play a mage, then I'm like, okay, I want to play mage. I don't want to be a human mage. A lot of the races have some special advantages. So, okay, I want to be some DB. Then I think of the kind of DB I want to be. Do I want to look sort of human so I can kind of pass in human society? Or do I just want to be some weird alien thing that has as most power as I can get? Either one has advantages. I usually play the fairly human-looking one because it is a role-playing game. There's a society and all that. Even though I'm a bit of a power gamer, I still don't want my character getting shot in the back because he looks like some monstrous thing.
A bit. The other thing to mention is, you should also, before you're studying your character, as Carmen mentioned, you should consider your race and, how you're going to look, etc. The other thing you want to consider, too, is have a bit of a backstory in mind. I'm not saying you have to write a novel, but where does your character come from? What's their motivation? Yeah. We mentioned this before in the GM, I think it was the GM video, how to GM or what have you. It's important because it'll give you a flavor for how you want to make your character. So keep that in mind as well.
And it also for games like Rifts, where the world's really well described, it also gives you an idea of the kind of characters that will come from that region. So like if you're playing a character from the Wild West, you're not probably going to be some high-tech super sleuth. They're just not there, right? It's cowboys and gunslingers.
And also, when you're picking your race or, even your size and things of that nature, we had, I'll give you an example. You remember we had another game. One of our players wanted to play, was it Protoss? I can't remember. It was a giant class.
Oh, yeah. The 20-foot giant. It's the Dragon Slayer.
Dragon Slayer. And it was just, and everybody else is basically playing a humanoid type character. And we were like, okay, it's going to be great, because when we go into combat or we go into somewhere, you're going to stand outside and go, what do I do? Yeah. And so, those are the kind of things you want to consider.
And if you're playing a character that's 20 feet tall and the rest of your party are regular humans, that 20-foot tall guy is a bullet magnet. And so the rest of the party just hides behind him and lets him get shot.
Yeah, that is so. It may have its advantages for the party, but again, we're joking, but seriously, it's something to consider. Okay, so let's get into it.
All right. So assuming you've figured out what kind of character you want to play, and you've picked an OCC, and you've picked maybe a race if you want to play something other than human, you have to then know how to roll up your character. Rolling up a character in Palladium is really pretty easy. There's 8 stats. I should be able to name off by heart. IQ, ME, MA, PS, PP, PE, PB, and speed. So that's all of them. So there's 8. And if you're just playing a normal human, according to the rules, you basically roll 3 dice. Okay? Take whatever that is for that individual stat.
And that'll be D6s.
Yep. If it rolls depending on the book, this is different for different books, but it's either 17 or 18 or 16, 17 or 18, depending on which book it is. And that will allow you to roll another dice and add it to the total. In the Rifts book, it's 16, 17, 18. You roll, add another die. If you get another 6 on that die, you get to roll one more and add it. But that's not how we roll up ours. Because what happens with that is you can end up one with an attribute in a stat that you really need that really sucks. Or you can end up with an attribute that you need that just barely qualifies, and you want to play the epic gunfighter. Well, you know what? If your PP is just enough to enter the class, you are not epic. You are just, he's a gunfighter. He hasn't got shot yet because he hasn't went up against Billy the Kid.
Right.
Do you know what I mean? Okay, it's a character, but whatever. So how we usually roll them is we'll just roll 8 stats, and we'll roll 4 dice, okay? Take the best 3 numbers out of those 4 dice, and if any of the 4 dice roll a 1, we'll re-roll that die so that we don't have any 1s. Okay, so in here, like he laid the dice down, he's got 2 1s and a 2 and a 5. He would re-roll the 2 1s, and then after re-rolling the 2 1s, assuming he got something else, then he would take the best 3 out of that, and then based on that, he would get an extra die if he rolled 16, 17, or 18.
Right.
And then we organize those stats wherever we want on the character. That's how our personal group does it, and it ends up being more epic characters. Yes, they are more powerful, but not always, because a lot of times, I mean, when we want role-playing, and yes, even I make role-playing characters sometimes.
Yes.
We'll put them in beauty. Why? Because we want to play the Playboy. And if we want to play the Playboy, MA and beauty are more important than big combat stats. Because a lot of our games, there's relatively little combat. I mean, we kind of divide them out between the 2 types of games that we play. And in those are more important. You know, if we want to play the professor type character or the awesome skill bunny, then IQ is more important than high PP or high strength. But then if we want to play, Mr. Combat, guy from the far future, Captain whoever,
Kick-ass.
then it's PE, PB, and speed, strength all the way. Then on top of that, you have to think of if you have a race that has any special abilities that you want, well, the race will probably have unusual stats. So then you'll roll according to that stat. So say if the race has 2d4 for strength. Well, you have to roll 2d4 according to the actual rules for that specific stat, and then take whatever you get on those 2 dice. The way we play, we would roll an extra die, discard 1s again, and then if it came out to a perfect amount, then we'd roll 1 more of that die, based on whatever it was. And those ones, though, you'd have to roll for the actual stat. And then anything else that was a 3d6 attribute, then we would put those wherever we want. And if we had like multiple attributes that weren't 3d6, so say you had 5 2d6 attributes, then you could put those ones wherever you want. Other than that's basically how we roll them up. Hopefully that doesn't sound too confusing. I don't think it is. But I mean, it shows you the difference between the actual rules and the way we end up playing them. There's nothing wrong with that. I guess that's the key we want. As long as your group agrees on how you want to roll up the stats, the written text in the book is not that big a deal.
And the truth is, let's face it, anybody can sit there and fudge their rolls.
Oh, yeah.
It's a pen and paper game. If it's that important to you to have a high strength,
Have a high strength.
Put a high strength. It's Rifts. Something's out there. There's going to be something in the world that can take you out.
Yeah.
Probably multiple somethings. So it's not that big a deal. Although, in the interest of fairness to the other players, you should always lean toward, just going with the rules that you got. I mean, you're going to acquire things. There's going to be scenarios where you don't have to be strong. You just got to be fast or smart.
Yeah, but as long as your group as a whole is doing it the same way, it doesn't really matter. That's the primary importance. As long as your group as a whole is doing it the same way. If one of you guys uses our system for doing it and everybody else is using by the book, it's not fair because his character is going to end up kick-ass and the rest are going to suck. So, just play it the same for everybody. That's all that matters.
Yeah.
Okay, so we'll go on to the next step. Now you've got your attributes. You need to go on to figuring out things like your damage, you'll basically have, in all the games, there's hit points and SDC. Assuming that you're not playing an MDC character in Rifts, you'll take your PE attribute plus a D6, and that'll give you your first level hit points. If you're playing some weird race that has a bonus to that, you'll add a bonus on. Other than that's all there is to getting your hit points. Your SDC will be based primarily on your skills, so whatever skills you pick, each one will give a bonus. Sometimes your class or your race will add a bonus to that, and then that's it for SDC.
Right.
Okay.
Could you kind of explain the difference between mega damage and
Yep.
the standard SDC?
Okay, so SDC and hit points, they really primarily are everywhere. They're how many life points the character has, I guess. MDC is mega damage capacity, and in Rifts, it basically equals 100 of the SDC or hit points. So it's 100 times more. And it can only be damaged by weapons which are MDC themselves. So it doesn't matter how many times you shoot somebody with a pistol, if he's MDC and that pistol doesn't do MDC, then that person doesn't get hit. It just doesn't get hurt by it. When you have an MDC monster, it will tell you how to roll his MDC, but it's generally just like rolling up your hit points. The big difference is that you don't have SDC to add on to it. And if you take if you're an MDC creature and you take skills that add to your stats or to your SDC, and you're an MDC, it doesn't do anything. So it doesn't add anything to your points. That's usually one of the spots people get confused all the time. Is they'll say, okay, I got boxing, so I add 10 to my SDC, and I'm an MDC creature, so I'm going to add 10 to my MDC. No, you don't get it. You don't get it at all. So that's one of the primary confusions people get, especially newbies who are new to the system. So anyway, after you get your SDC, usually here, we'll look and try to figure, okay, these are what we're good in. This is what our class gives us, and now we'll try to figure out our skills. I don't actually. Wait a minute, let's see. MDC. Psionics is next according to the book, but see again, we usually do our skills next. So you have your OCC, and you know what kind of character you want to pick. So you'll pick your skills. First, you'll get all the skills given to you by your OCC. If your race gives you any special skills, you'll add those in. Okay. Then you'll get a selection of skills to pick from. So you'll get, they'll say you can pick anything from communications or from medical, you can only take first aid or whatever. So you just read through those and it'll tell you how many you can pick and you pick them. Mm-hmm. Write them down and then go on to secondaries. Again, with the secondaries, same thing. Some books will let you pick from the previous list without any bonuses. Other books tell you, like the new ones, tell you to look in the main book for a secondary skill list and you choose from that list. That'll give you all your skills. So once you've done that, you'll have all your skills laid out. Now you got to put percentages on them. Again, here's where some people mess up. The skills percentages given for the base amounts in the book are what you get at first level. Some people try to go, it's 30% plus 5 per level. Some people just try to think that that means at first level it's 35%. No, it's not. It's 30% because the plus per level doesn't start until level 2. Right. Okay, so that's one of the primary things. Next, you'll have bonuses. So, say if it's again a 30%, if it's an OCC skill and for that skill it lists plus 20%, that means you just add that 20% and that brings it up to 50. Now, if you have an IQ bonus adds to those too. So, say if you had a 5% for IQ, well, now you'd start with 55 because you'd get 30 for the base skill, 20% for the OCC bonus, and then 5% for your IQ. And then that gives you the percentage. And you just walk through every skill and do the same thing. The only ones that won't have percentages attached to them are things like your physical skills, for the most part don't, because there's things like boxing or athletics or whatever, they don't have any percentages, although some like swimming do. And then your hand-to-hands, which you don't need to bother with percentages. They give you bonuses per level. We'll go to that in a bit. But once you have those done, that's your skills listed out. Now, that is where a lot of people have the hardest time in Palladium because there's a lot of skills to choose from.
Yeah.
That's not a bad thing. it means that you'll have a character who actually has some breadth and depth to the character. Personally, I like skills. So if you ask him, one of my favorite characters to play, even though it's not the most powerful, especially when we're playing in a more role-playing game, is a Cyber Knight in Rifts. Because a Cyber Knight at first level can start with 40 skills, which is about twice as much as anybody else. And it means that Cyber Knight will have all kinds of different stuff he'll be able to do. Instead of just trying to kick you in the door and kicking ass, he'll be able to, fix a car, or he'll be able to ride his horse, or ride a hover cycle, or
it makes it seem a little more like real life. People have a range of skills in real life. They can fix a car as well as maybe fire a rifle, but they can also cook a meal. And so you don't run into the situation where it's like, oh man, does anybody here know how to pick a lock? Okay, guess we can't enter that room.
Yeah.
So
you can get a much more rounded character. And again, picking the skills just requires a little bit of time. The one thing, if it's a negative, and I don't know if it is, because I actually enjoyed the making a character process, is it's a long process in Palladium. I know other game systems make it quick. And you can make a character quick, and the character usually dies quick. So, yeehaw. I would rather a character that I take a little bit of time to make, and he sticks around for a while. But again, once you're used to playing the game, even that doesn't take all that much time.
Yeah, and I would say that's probably a criticism that I've had. It does take a while. And it also means that you develop an attachment for a character.
Yep.
That goes a lot deeper. I find that people who play Palladium games are kind of like, oh man, I worked all night on that character, and it can be, for some people, it can be an all-night process.
But I mean, like, if you like the Palladium game systems and you enjoyed playing, I often make up backup characters. So when one guy dies, I got another one ready to go during the game. And I'll do that at home, when we're not there. But I mean, I'll spend all night tooling around, screwing around with the character, maybe watching some YouTube videos in the background, and come up with a character that I enjoy. And then if something happens to the character I'm currently playing, hey, I got another one that I like, and I lay it down, and away we go.
So it does help to make multiple characters.
Yeah.
I actually don't tend to do that. I just go out of my way to make sure that my character's not going to die, or at least die in such a way that I'll be overly disappointed. If he goes out and, with guts and glory, then okay, I guess I can handle that, but...
Yeah. He's getting into touching on GMing stuff, but when a character dies heroically, it's cool. It's fun. It's that's the way you want it to go out.
All good things come to an end, and if they come to an end greatly, then hey, I'm okay with it.
Yeah, it's only when you take a dirt nap for no apparent reason that you get upset.
I think we mentioned something like that in a previous video.
Yeah.
So
okay, anyway, to continue on, once you get your skills down and you know the basic abilities of your class, one of the things you can determine psionics. Again, we usually wait till later for this, because if you pick a class that has psionics,
right,
you automatically start with whatever they give you. So why bother rolling for this now? So we usually wait until after we've got our class and figured out our skills and stuff. So anyway, determining psionics, there's a little chart in here you roll. You roll percentile, which is, people roll it all different ways. There's that set of dice like he's got here that actually has a 10 spot as well as the regular ones. I particularly always roll a D20 and a regular D10 if I can find one, which I can't apparently. Okay, well, I'll pretend this one is. But I usually roll like that, and then I take, this is my first number, and this is my second. But however you do it, you just roll your percentile. Up to 10%, you get major psionics, so you're a guy with a fair amount of psionic power. And then 11 to 25, you're minor. Us, in general, we prefer minor because you don't lose any skills. And in most of the books, you'll lose some skills if you have major psionics. And then from 26 to 100, there's no psionics, you just don't have any. But if you've already picked your skills and that, it makes it easier, and you've already got your class. Because if you want to master psionic, you have to have a class that gives you master. And so why bother rolling this if you're going to play a psychic anyway?
Right.
This is just kind of icing on the cake if you happen to get it. And then two, again with the house rule thing, if one of us really, really wants minor powers, okay, take it. Yeah, whatever. It's not going to dramatically upset the game.
And honestly, that really comes back to the GMing. And like I said, we'll talk about that stuff later.
Yeah. Okay, the next big thing is picking your alignment, and now we're starting to get into where you're going to craft it. You've got basically what the character can do, and now you're going to craft how the character acts. The core in Palladium to how a character acts, is his alignment. So for good guys, you've got principled and scrupulous. And we generically look at this as Superman, Batman. So if you look at those two DC characters and get an idea how they act, that's how your character acts.
Right.
So, the principled guy, is up for what's right. He tells the truth. He doesn't backstab, all that stuff. Scrupulous guy, he's more about getting the job done. He believes in good and right, but, if he's got to twist a couple of arms to get that,
right.
Okay, we'll do that.
So one is basically, the ends never justify the means, or shouldn't justify the means, and the other one is, ends definitely justify my means.
Yeah.
So.
Okay, and then so those are your good ones. Then you have, and by the way, we're going over these quick, but they give a whole bunch of points in the book to give you a good description of how that is supposed to be played out. Now, they're not, I will say though, they're not hard and fast. They're not, you don't have to 100% abide to them every second of the law. So if you have a character that will not lie, okay, yes, he will not lie, but that doesn't mean he won't tell a white lie if it's to save someone's feelings or, that kind of thing. They're talking about serious lies for serious reasons. They're not talking about generic stuff. Like, also, here, for example, the principal character never takes dirty money. Okay, that's fine. He never takes dirty money. But if he's, a cop and he's undercover and taking dirty money is part of that undercover operation, yes, he does it, right? Regardless of his alignment.
Right.
These are for how you're supposed to play them, not rules that you have to follow every second. Or how do we usually name that? For alignments. For example, chaotic stupid in other games.
Right. Yes.
Where you follow it regardless.
Yeah. Just, my guy's chaotic, so I'm just going to go murder a bunch of people.
I mean, that's in other games, but I'm saying we never play those like that, and that's not how they're intended to be played. Okay, anyway, now we'll get on to selfish. Selfish is unprincipled alignment. An unprincipled character, basically, you're pretty much a good guy, but you're willing to do things that aren't exactly right, if it gives you an upper hand, or basically you're the essential selfish person.
You're a self-motivated individual. Yes, you may share ammo with, your partner who's just run out of ammo.
Yeah.
But it's only because you need him to pick that lock later on. Truthfully, if you could go on without him and collect a bigger bounty or whatever, you would. And,
Yeah, you're in for yourself.
You're in it for yourself. That, I think sometimes though, players tend to think that means you're a douche. No, not necessarily.
The next one's the douche.
There are very good people who are selfish by nature. I just think it takes a little bit of common sense and maturity to play that in a role playing scenario.
Yeah, so you're good, but you're selfish on top of it. Okay, the next one is anarchist. Now the anarchist really is kind of a douchebag. I mean, you're not yet evil.
Word of the day, kids.
Yeah, you're not yet evil, but you are a douchebag. I mean, they for example, I'm just going to read off a couple quick.
You are not a bad guy, but you are, a bad guy.
like here, just for the first couple, I mean, they're precious. Keeps his word, but only if it suits him or pleasures him to do so. Lie and cheat if he feels it's necessary. Not likely to kill an unarmed person, but will definitely knock him out, attack and beat up one. He's just a douchebag. So yeah, it's easy enough to understand that one. Any guy that you've watched beat on his woman for no apparent reason, yeah, that's a douchebag, and that would be of that stat. All right. So anyway, the next one. Now we get into the evil stuff. Aberrant. This happens to be my favorite. 99% of my characters have this one.
Is anybody surprised by that?
And I like it because it is both the most restrictive and least restrictive of the alignments. And by that I mean, you're an evil character, so you can do what evil characters do, but you have a code of honor. And I emphasize the code of honor, which means if you give someone your word, you keep it. You know, if you're expected to do something, I don't know what's a good example. If the group's like, if you're expected to support your group, you do it. You know, you don't go around.
You wouldn't necessarily backstab your.
Yeah, exactly.
And I've actually encountered in games where you will have a player who goes, "Well, I'm a baron, so I mean that's why I kept more money than everybody else." No, that's selfish.
Yeah, that's
You're
selfish.
getting your alignments crossed. Your alignments crossed up. You know, an aberrant guy is. You know, I mean, he's that general who will slaughter an entire village to protect his men.
Yeah.
Because hey, they could be a threat later on, and I mean, well, or he kills all the men and says, "Hey, look, those are women and children. We let them go." You know, it's just you're capable of doing things that a principal character would not do.
Yeah.
But at the same time, you know, if it's within your best interest to take care of, take care of whatever your overarching scope might be, your men, your group, yourself. You know, it's not necessarily a selfish motivation. It's just that you have a way of thinking and a way of being
That's different than most.
That's different than most, and it is restricting because I mean, even if you give your word to do something, or you say you're not going to do something, you lean toward that. Again, even these aren't really written in stone.
To me, the one that's most similar to historically would be the Japanese code of Bushido for the samurais. The samurais really were like this because the Bushido, there were things they just wouldn't do, and then the rest of it, whatever. Because I mean, these are the guys who would cut a peasant's head off for insulting him, but yet at the same time, they had a strict hierarchy that they had to follow, and that's one of the reasons why I like that alignment is because it does have that. Yes, he's got flexibility, but he's got definite honor, and he'll follow it. Anyway, the next one is Miscreant. Okay, Miscreant is an evil bugger. He's not quite yet psychotic, but he's an evil bastard.
Yeah.
I mean, there's nothing.
I mean, he's the worst of selfishness and
no morals, no ethics.
Yeah, he's just out there to be a douchebag.
Yeah, and then you get down to Diabolic, and Diabolic is, I mean, he's evil for the sake of being evil.
Oh, evil! Wow, you took the words right out of my mouth.
I mean,
I would think that the worst of demons would be it's not even a selfish motivation. It's just like the more evil and chaos I can spread, the better. If there's murder, rape, and pillage going on over there, it would be awesome if it was all on fire. I think that's the Diabolic mindset.
And in our games, we don't even allow you to play it.
Because it's just too disruptive.
No.
If you're part of the party, there's no way. We all have generally, good alignments or even just selfish alignments. I mean, even in real life, you think about it, let's just say you had a party of 5 and 4 of them were playing selfish alignments and one of them was playing Diabolic, they'd all shoot him in the middle of the night.
Oh, yeah.
Once they figure it out.
You can't trust a player like that. Excuse me, player. You can't trust a character like that. You can't trust the player while he's playing that either.
Yeah, exactly.
It's just horrible. I mean, we just don't even allow it.
Yeah.
Okay, so now you've gotten that done. Again, following through in the book here, it talks about the experience level, the experience stuff. Although it's called Step 7, really you won't be doing it right now because you don't have any experience because it's a brand new character. So we skip past that and we get to rounding out your character. It's got a bunch of neat little charts, but this is the part that we only use once in a while because usually we do what Will says is we write up a background. Okay, so if you're playing in a one-off game, go ahead and roll this stuff and it'll give you an idea for a character, at least give you something to work with. But if you're playing in a campaign, because we usually play campaigns, then you're going to want to actually write up a background. And whatever your background is, it's going to cover all this anyway. Yeah. It's going to say where you're from, what your brothers and sisters and stuff are, what your life was growing up, what you think about the DBs.
You should save yourself like 45 minutes or so.
Now, one of the parts I do like is I like the disposition stuff. And that's in almost every game, and just because it's a real crimp note kind of format of how your character acts.
Right. Especially if you're not. I mean, I know some of this and some of the things we've been mentioning, would imply that you're necessarily a creative person, that there's a necessity for a high amount of creativity, which is a bit, I guess, unfair for us to assume that of you, the viewer, or the players. So yeah, you may need some of these things to round your character out. So, but if you can, and I would think that most role players have an imagination that they can round them out in their own mind, then this stuff becomes, you can kind of put it on the back burner. But I think that, I mean, if you need things for your disposition, how your character kind of acts, or maybe just for suggestions of things you just didn't even think of, I think that's where they would come in handy.
Okay. The next part in making your character is, this has always been a pet peeve of mine, because Kevin never has put it in here, but is the step where you sit down and calculate all your combat bonuses. For some reason, there's no step listed for it, but this is one of the most important parts.
Absolutely.
So, this is how we do it, and this is probably the best and quickest way to do it. First, look at your hand-to-hand, look at the first level entry, and that will tell you basically your starting bonuses. And you're going to want to write those down, so you'll have strike, parry, dodge, damage, roll, punch or fall, pull punch, all that, and you'll have attacks. So you want to write that, so it'll give you your starting attacks, and you'll get your basis to start. Then what you want to do is go to your OCC and your race, if you're playing a special race, and see if there's any bonuses you get there. Then add those to the total. Okay? After that, go to each of your physical skills in turn and read through them, and a bunch of them will list a bunch of bonus stats. For instance, boxing, we can name off by heart. It has 1 extra attack, +2 to your strength, which now is going to increase your strength total, +2 to parry and dodge, and +1 to roll with a punch. So you want to add those into the list of bonuses you're making up. Okay, now you want to do that now, you want to add skills now, because a lot of those physicals add to your stats. And then once you add those to your stats, you're going to have to update your stats to get your final figures for your character. And once you have that, then you'll be able to look at your stats, and some of the stats will give you bonuses to your combat bonuses. So then you can add those in. So that's why you want to make sure you do skills before attributes. And then once you're done, total all that stuff up, and you'll get a list of, attacks, strike, parry, dodge, and all that. And then, you have it nice and quick. Also go through, when you do the skills, make sure you go through your WPs. WPs don't add to the total, though, because you only use those while you're using that particular weapon. So you'll want to keep those separately in the skill list with each WP, just in brackets, +1 strike, +2 parry, or if it's like a shooting weapon, at first level you'll have no strike bonus unless you have like a special strike for your class or something. And then as you go up in levels, those will increase. Your hand-to-hand provided bonuses will increase, but those provided by your other skills will not. So you're only going to have a couple things you have to look at. That is usually the most difficult part, and because it's not specifically spelled out, do these in this order, that's where people usually have a hard time.
Yeah.
Okay?
I know I do.
Once you're done that will give you a list of basically all the bonuses and penalties, all the bonuses and penalties for your character, including your saving throws and stuff. Make sure you calculate that out when you're doing combat bonuses. That'll give you all that stuff, and you'll be finished with it. And it'll be on your sheet and easy to use. It'll have all your skills will be done, your character basically will be written up, his attributes will be done. So that takes care of all the kind of number crunching for the character. Now you get, the last part to really finishing off your character is getting your money and figuring out exactly how much you have and what you start with. Each OCC will have a big block of stuff that he starts with. It's like, I have a climbing rope, tent, backpack, I got a small vehicle. Anyway, it'll list a whole bunch of stuff like that. So go ahead and write that stuff down. If it has any choices in it, make the choices. A lot of times you'll be given choice of things like 1 energy rifle, 1 energy pistol. So go through the books and pick an energy rifle, pistol, and whatever suits your fancy. Now, generally, most games, I know we do this, you can only pick a weapon from the region you're in. So don't be playing in the outskirts of Chi-Town and think that you can take the that killer las cannon or the laser cannon that's in South America. I think it's Book 9. It's the one that you can take down a glitter boy with. Don't think you can be taking that, because you're not going to be able to find that in this region. But other than that, just pick what you want. You'll get a choice of vehicles. Pick that. Once in a while in there, like if you have a homespun armor, you might have to roll for how much the armor is. But just go through and pick that stuff out, and then that will complete the character. Now you'll have everything done for it, and you'll be ready to roll. It's really that easy. I mean, as long as you break it down into little bits, I got to do this, and then do this, and then do this, and do this. It's no longer a big deal.
It's just the steps. And, when I first started Risk, I was lucky enough that I started playing Palladium, I should say. I played with you. So it was like, you opened a book, you're like, well, here's how it's done. And it took me step by step. Unfortunately, most of you guys aren't going to have the benefit of having a writer sitting next to you to teach you. So hopefully this video is going to help you.
Well, before we cut it off, though, remember, too, if you're, depending on what game you're playing, or even what OCC you're playing, there might be other things you have to calculate or pick after you've done your skills and you've rounded out your character. A good example would be if you're playing fantasy, or if you're playing a magic user in here, you'll have to pick spells, right? And we didn't cover that because that's not available for every character. If you're playing, say, Nightbane, you might have to roll your Morphus up.
Right.
So each of those settings will tweak how because we're talking about generally, but each setting will tweak how you have to do it. It won't be a big variation because it's pretty consistent, but it will have those little differences. And just make sure you read through it. Read through it once and you get an idea, and then it won't be a big deal. Okay, now we can end it.
Now we can end it. Woo! All right, guys. Well, hopefully this helps out. And, if you have any questions, as always, you know how to get a hold of us. Get in the comments and, ask the question. Hopefully we can answer it for you. And, like I said, hopefully this video helps out. Anyway, it's from the Riffs, Big Will Johnson.
And Carmen Belair.
See you later.
See ya.